Hello everyone, my name is Francisco, and in this video I will be showing you a little bit of my process of sketching houses. For this process I'm using a combination of pen work with watercolors. To be more specific, I'm using Micron for the base. This is a waterproof pen. I'm using a Pilot G-Tech. This is not waterproof and I'm doing the last details with it. And I'm using Sennelier watercolors and a water brush, which is basically a brush with water inside. Also for the paper I'm using Fontaine paper. Is watercolor paper, 300 grams and 100% cotton. Has a nice texture to it and is really nice to make different textures with a brush. So first I start with the base sketch. I'm using the Micron PN for this part. This pen is waterproof, as I said, so any watercolors that we're gonna use on top will not bleed and the lines will stay intact. In this first part of the process, we are focusing on getting the base elements, the most important lines, the most important details, just everything that will guide us then through the rest of the process. I really recommend you to sketch a lot outside, to look at references, to explore, to learn how things work. In this case, I sketch a lot of houses, so I try to do a lot of urban sketching, look a lot outside, take a lot of pictures, get a lot of references. In this way I can have a better understanding how everything works and how the different details are built together. Feel free to add as much details as you want in these beginning stages. This is probably the most fun part because this is where you see your drawing coming to life. So yeah, just take your time, and if you feel like doing more details, just do it. In the end, they all will be visible, so the more information the better. This obsession for houses for me came from the fact that first I have a little bit of difficulties with drawing people. It's just not something that I'm very good at. Also, I never really put much effort to learn it. I'm a little bit lazy about that, so I think the houses serve me as a little bit of an escape from that. Other reason to draw a lot of houses is because I think they have so much character, they carry so much personality, and they really represent a culture, a stage in a timeline, a different time, and a lot of times they just represent a lot of different influences, a lot of strange combinations of styles, and I think they really carry a lot of meaning and a lot of stories just by a look at the house itself. So that's one of the biggest reasons for me to just draw houses all the time. I think the options are almost endless. Also, another reason to draw so many houses, it's because I just get completely inspired by looking at houses. When I go somewhere, when I travel, is really what captures most of my attention. I love to look at the details, the ways as the different places have their windows, their doors, the decoration they use or the lack of. I also like to see how the times and the aging of the house impact the look of it, the cracks, the graffiti on it, everything. All those little things, they transform the house with time, and they are not really controlled, so they create this kind of weird and unexpected beauty, in my opinion, which is really present and has such a big impact on me and on what I see and what I like to then bring to my work. Going back to the process here, now I'm going to the watercolors. I'm using a water brush, which is a brush with water inside. It's very simple to use. It's also very practical. We can carry it around, we can store water inside, and we don't need to keep refilling. the tip or having like a container with water. It just makes our life much easier to paint on the go. I like to start by using the blue first and painting the shadows. In this way I can have a better understanding of the volumes of the house, of the different shapes, and just brings the three-dimensional forms to life really fast. And it's almost like a hack to make the drawing much more understandable at the beginning and easy to then paint. I also really like how the warm tones lay on top of the blues. I think it brings out a nice and interesting saturated tone to the painting. I think when we lay the blue on top of the other colors, it kind of gets a little bit more smudged and more dirty. I think in this way the colors just come a little bit nicer. The way I use the brush is also very important. I like to create different variations in the way I touch with the tip of the brush in the paper. In this way I can get different textures. I always experiment a lot. And I think it's very important to just try out different papers, different ways of using the brush. Using the brush with a little bit more dry paint, with more water, and just experiment a lot and see what effects this creates. I also use a napkin sometimes to take some watercolor out of the paper. Sometimes we can make some mistakes, and we also can get some nice textures if we use the napkin and we just slap it on the watercolor. Just don't be afraid of experimenting and trying. You have a little bit of a time frame till the watercolor dries, so you can get a lot of different effects and different marks with it. So just try out and see what it gives to you. As you can see, now that I'm using all the colors on top of the blues, the shadows are not as intense as they were at the beginning. I know it's always a little bit scary because the blue seems to be so dark and so saturated, but then when we use other colors on top with yellows or greens or reds, the blue just disappears. It transforms itself in some nice shades of green, and it just transforms itself into shadows and stops to being just that harsh blue. I also like to sprinkle, as you can see here, some watercolors on top, so I create even more texture, more depth, and more feeling of rusty and old. I really like to paint old houses, and all these techniques and these ways of making textures just emphasize that idea of time and of passing of time. Now we move to the pen work. This is the time where we finish our piece basically, and we start to just define all these little details. Normally I start with a Micron BR. This is like a pen with a brush tip, so it's nice to make the bigger areas and the bigger darks. I only use brown, I don't use black. I think brown looks much nicer. Then I move to the Pilot G-Tech. This is not a waterproof pen, so you can use it if you want with watercolor on top, and also creates nice effects. I mostly use it for the last details because it's a 0.4 of thickness, is quite thin, so we can make nice textures with it and also make nice line work. It's possible to do both, and I like that about this pen. About the rendering of the line work, I normally work only with the vertical lines. I don't do much cross hatching because the illustration already has a lot of depth with all the watercolor work, so I just try to keep it simple, and use the pen more to add details on the things that already exist on the drawing and not really to add depth or big contrast. This line of work at the end is really to just add definition to the illustration and yeah, just to give it extra clear look. I also really like the way the pen works on top of these textures that we created with the watercolor. It's just nicer to emphasize some of those details that we create and bring them even more to life. So I try to go pretty much all over the painting with these details. It's also nice if you don't want to add so much details in certain parts. You can also take advantage of that and create this effect of proximity, of some details being more in front, some more in the back. For example, here in the roof, I don't really add much details in the back of the roof because it's not really necessary. It's not something that is closer to the camera or to our vision. I just focus on the things that I think are closer and that I want really to guide the eye to it. And this was the process. I hope you like it. I hope it was helpful. It's been a very requested video for a long time. I do a lot of these videos, but very fast on Instagram. So you can see more or less the process, but not really how I face it. So I hope this was helpful and I hope you like the results. I hope I can do more in the future. Thank you.